Right. Hi, I'm Sarah Smith. I'm the Minecraft coordinator at 825 Arts, and I'm here with Xiem, who is Frogtown Green's garden manager, outreach coordinator, and volunteer coordinator, as well as soon to be 825 Arts' new climate organizer. Hi, Xiem.
Hi, I'm Xiem Busch-Vuong. It's hyphenated because I'm married. I use any pronouns, and I'm super happy to be here.
Rock and roll. All right. Well, I'm here to interview today about all of the cool stuff you do here at Frogtown Green, as well as talk about some stuff for gardens for our Great Garden Buildathon on July 12th.
Okay.
All right, so for starters, what do you do with the Frogtown Green?
So I, like you said, am outreach, volunteer, and garden coordinator. That amounts to a lot of emailing and texting, and also being the primary person who doles out community garden beds and does a lot of weeding at the community gardens as well. This year, being put in front of the task of taking care of the community garden at our village meant that I also ordered all the seeds and starts and did the bed planning for crop rotations.
Ooh, nice. Okay, so then what's the Frogtown Green's mission? You have these community gardens and they all rock.
So Frogtown Green's mission is to make Frogtown the greenest neighborhood in St. Paul, maybe even Minnesota. The existence of Frogtown Green spun off of the creation of Frogtown Park and Farm, which, as you know, is right in the middle of our neighborhood. It is a dedicated 13-acre organic farm that is owned by the city and leased by a nonprofit called Frogtown Farm. If you know Chef Lachelle Cunningham, she is the ED of Frogtown Farm. And Frogtown Green was created after the fact by Patricia Omens, when she noticed that we need more than just one park. We need other green spaces in Frogtown in addition to a park. So that's where Frogtown Green comes in. So we run a whole mishmash of programs. We manage community gardens, we manage pollinator spaces, we also do tree planting programs. So each year we give away free trees to residents in Frogtown, and we've been doing that for 13 years. The community gardens have been around for about 10 years as well. And then the big pollinator space that you have probably seen on Pierce Butler around Minnehaha Rec Center, that's also us. So we just do all of that to try and get the residents of Frogtown engaged in nature and make up for a big environmental justice gap that happens because of the demographics of our neighborhood.
Yeah. And one of the things that's listed on your website as a goal is to cultivate the soil. Mm-hmm. What's the importance of soil to Frogtown Green?
So Frogtown was built on top of swampland, and then it was turned into kind of a giant train yard. Mm-hmm. And then after that, people tore up the pavement and just kind of put whatever there. Actually, where we are right now at our village garden used to be a dump. And then after that, it was remediated, and then it became a bowling alley, so that was a parking lot. And then after that, we had to remediate a bunch of soil, move a bunch of fill out in order to make the land somewhat workable for gardening purposes. And to that point, it's still not there because we used raised beds in order to make up for the poor soil quality. Mm-hmm. A lot of that is because of low investment in the land, because people who lived here were seen as disposable, or people saw the land as something that they could move away from if they found the soil quality was too poor for them. Mm-hmm. So we have to make up for that now, whether that means we have to pay for amendments, or we have to continue to work the soil by hand or by tilling. And that is why Frogtown Green invests in soil infrastructure, because we have to make up for historical times, and because we've all but started to diminish the huge layer of compost that was on top of Minnesota's land from all the prairies that used to be here.
That'll do it.
Yes.
I I can imagine there's some heavy metal deposits too you've got to be cautious of. Do you do soil testing?
We do soil testing every year. There's never been any lead found here. We have found some lead on site at the Beeline. None of that is agricultural land though, so we're not super concerned about that. And doing raised beds is another way to avoid any lead within the food as well.
Yeah. And there's a difference between leafy greens and stuff like squash or tomatoes too, yeah?
Yes, yes. So if you're worried about lead in the soil, you can grow things that bear fruit and like things like tomatoes. They're perfectly safe to eat. The lead, if there is any in there, will be in the vines, but not the fruit. You can't necessarily grow greens on stuff where you know there's dangerous levels of lead. It's kind of hard though, because I think people, even if you are on historically mistreated land, should still have access to gardening. And there have been stories about community gardens that have been required to remediate like 6 inches of soil with no budget, you know, because the city or the county has found out that there's levels of lead in their garden. So it's a fine line to balance. We do our own soil tests every year just to manage that on our own, but I know that metal and heavy metal tests are kind of a hot topic amongst community garden makers because we do so much gardening on what are known as brownfields, which is, there used to be a dump there, there used to be a gas station there. The city has no use for this land, and that's kind of the role that a community garden plays, is kind of revitalizing these lands that people find no purpose in commercially.
That's super cool. Thank you. So then specifically, we're visiting our village garden today. What's your favorite part of this garden?
My favorite part of this garden is probably the mini forest. I talked a bit about that with you earlier. It's been really great to see that come to life within just 1 year, and I'm really excited because I already see a lot of birds and insects taking interest in the habitat there. That's probably my favorite part. We put it together last fall and it was super rainy, but it was definitely worth it, and that's actually where we used to get our compost dropped off, so that's why it's doing so super well.
Nice.
I think my other favorite parts of this garden, I do really like this pergola. People take their smoke breaks here, people take their lunch breaks here. And I also really like being in proximity to a mosque and an apartment building. So we get a lot of gardeners coming from both of those areas, and the cultural pollination that happens is really nice.
That's a good way to look at it, cultural pollination. Everybody's moving through, they're like bees.
Yes.
Yeah. So then what's the coolest thing growing here?
The coolest thing growing here, I really like ground cherries, and we were able to plant some this year, and I think that's the coolest thing that people probably don't commonly eat, or if they do eat them and buy them at the store, they're not ripe, so they don't taste good. I really am looking forward to the harvest of ground cherries this year.
I think a lot of people don't expect the flavor of them.
Oh yeah.
Because they've got that bubblegummy tartness to them.
Yes,
It's just
it's
like
so
an
good.
enigma.
That's so good. I mean, if you're already a fan of tomatoes, I just feel like the ground cherry is the next thing.
It really is.
It is.
I agree with you. Okay, so then we've already talked a little bit about the justice part of this place, environmentally. But the work here really intersects between environmental justice and food justice. How do those intertwine in these spaces?
So the way that those things intertwine is when we give people access to gardening, we are giving them the tools to learn how to self-sustain, and we are giving them an opportunity to connect to nature in ways that they would not be able to otherwise. Environmental justice is a thing that is talked about a lot, but I think the main issue when it comes to environmental justice in highly urban areas is there's kind of a hesitancy around engaging with nature when you haven't grown up around it, or if you're a new migrant to the area and you're not familiar with farming techniques or the seasonal patterns here. Giving people the chance to learn to adjust to the seasonal patterns here in Minnesota is something that community gardens that are free of cost provide. And I think when we give them the tools to learn how to grow new and familiar foods in an area that's literally 1 block away from their house, I think that also gives folks the opportunity to eat more healthily, eat fresh, and those 2 things are really important if you're talking about the ability to determine your own health. Because when you are in an area that doesn't offer a lot of fresh food, or you're financially restricted to pre-prepared foods, whether that be due to lack of time or lack of funds, something like having your own space where you feel like you have agency to not only be outside, but to choose what you want to grow, how you want to grow it, and how to provide for yourself and your family. I think those things are really essential to the way that people interact with nature. And being able to interact with nature leads to people feeling agency when it comes to environmental justice issues and to food justice issues.
Whoa, speaking of nature, I've got bug friends landing on me. Yeah, that's a really impactful thing you do, and that most community gardens do, is that it gives people that power over, engaging with nature at their own pace, and then feeling like they're part of an environment at a larger rate. That's so cool. Rock and roll. Okay. That brings us to another fun question. Do you garden in your free time?
Yes. Yes, I do. It's just like I'm gardening all the time. I'm gardening all the time.
Always in the dirt somewhere?
Always. I mean, I was like, okay, so over the winter, I was like, I don't need more plants because, like, I already do too much. Like, there's so much that I have to take care of. I'm tired. I was like, I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna take a break over the winter. And then I was like, I'm like sad. So I bought plants for the indoors as well. And then as soon as I could, I started gardening on my balcony. And I live at a co-op, so I got approvals to plant shrubs on our boulevard, and then I got approvals to make a bed there, and then I started gardening on my side of the building. And it's just like, I feel like you kind of can't help it when you have the option to, or at least I can't. Like, if the option is there, I'm going to do it, even if it means like I have to spend a couple more minutes each morning. I just have a problem where I can't stop gardening.
It's a good problem to have, though.
It is,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. My favorite thing when people talk to me about, like, why do you have so many plants? It's like, well, astronauts are required to keep plants on the ISS, because if you go too long without seeing green things growing, you start to go a little insane.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. At least that's what I've been told. It may be an urban myth. I'll fact check that. Yeah, but so how did you get started gardening?
How did I get started gardening? Well, my dad was a rural Vietnamese child. So he gardened growing up, and then when he immigrated to Minnesota, he brought that with him. So I've gardened with him since I was a kid, and then I took a huge veer into college. I got really into computers. I got really into tech. I majored in IT. And then I was like, this actually like sucks. Like, I don't like this. So I started getting involved in community gardening around 2019, which was COVID. Mainly because I was looking for something else to do with my time that didn't involve being indoors. And I got a plot here at our village, I met Patricia that way, and I started attending different community events. And one day, as I was coming out of a meeting with her, she said, "Do you like have a job?" And I was like, "I do. Should I not have a job?" And she was like, "I mean, not yet, but it would be great to have some help since you're around all the time anyways." So that's how I got started at Frogtown Green. I volunteered as a gardener first, and then she eventually hired me on to do seasonal work. And on the side, while I was doing that, I was also a florist.
Oh, wow.
So I had an interest in plants already, but then I realized floristry has like nothing to do with plants, and it's like all imported. So I was looking to get out of floristry because I felt that that didn't really align with my my values and trying to stay local and do things that are good for the earth. Floristry is bad, people. Don't buy flowers from Argentina for 5 cents, okay? That's all I'm gonna say on that. But that's how I got started, and that's how I am here.
That's a really cool way, but like, the way you got back into it is also how you got entwined here. Things move in mysterious ways. That's really cool. All right, so then this one's a big one.
Yes.
All right, so gardens come in a lot of forms. The people of Tenochtitlan had chinampas, or floating gardens. Mountain cultures have terrace gardens. The Ojibwe and the Dakota peoples both maintained food forests. And people throughout time have had veggie gardens, whether that's freedom farms or victory gardens, or the other, dozens of different types of ways people have cultivated small gardens for themselves. If you could create any kind of garden, any kind at all, what would you build?
I mean, honestly, I feel like my dreams are already like coming to life here. I was given free rein to just buy whatever I wanted with the funds. So I got to choose all of the seeds. I planned out everything from like where the plants would go to what would succeed them. So I feel really satisfied with being able to choose a combination of plants that would provide sustenance from the cold season onward, to also being able to choose like culturally relevant things to me, like being able to grow cucumbers and different levels of bok choy and different like Asian greens. And I think just like the sheer variety that we have here, I mean, with the addition of the shrubs that we got from our funding from it's from the agricultural department of Minnesota. We now have an orchard that has edible shrubs, which I feel like is getting pretty close to becoming a food forest. I think the only thing I would add to this garden, if I could, is I would start integrating livestock.
Ooh.
I would love to have chickens here. I would love to have goats, but chickens are a good start because they help you weed things without having to actually do any of it yourself. And they give you eggs, and they're cute. I think that's the only thing I would add to this garden, because otherwise it's just like I already have everything that I could possibly want.
That's really wonderful. What kind of chickens?
What kind of chickens?
Do you have a breed preference?
No.
Ooh.
Just like any is fine to me. Although I do really like silky chickens. I think they're quite funny looking. I feel like somebody would steal them.
Oh.
So I would just get regular looking chickens.
The little afros on the silkies are fabulous.
I like them. I like them a lot.
Have you seen the people who put the little 80s headbands on them?
No.
It's so good. If you're watching at home, stop right now and look up Silky Chickens 80s headbands. It will be good. Okay, so then the next thing. Gardens have tons of uses. People use them for food, for status, for beauty, for profit, for survival. Tons of different, things that they've been for throughout time. What does gardening mean to you?
I think gardening to me represents a level of self-reliance and a willingness to humble yourself. I think a lot of people start gardening and realize that it's actually really hard. Unless you only want to grow one crop at a time, if you actually want to feed yourself throughout the year, the level of time management and knowledge of different types of plants and soil chemistry it requires are quite challenging for folks. And I think for me, that's been a continual learning process and a willingness to take losses where you get them and to move with the seasons and the weather as it happens to you and to your plants. A willingness to adapt and to get dirty. All of that is what gardening is to me. So I think everybody should garden, even if you think you don't like it or you think you're not good at it. I think everybody should, because it really changes the way you think.
Yeah, that worldview shift is something. All right. So this isn't Frogtown Green's only community garden. You've talked a little bit about that. Can you tell us about the other community garden, the lily pad garden?
Yeah, so the other one, the lily pad garden, is on Dale and LaFond. It's right next to Co-op Restaurant, and it is a partnership between us and I'm blanking on his name right now, but there's another guy involved. And so he owns the lease and we maintain it. There's a rain garden there that we have a grant for through Capital Region Watershed. So we get a little bit of money to maintain that. That's an all native rain garden. And then we also have these kind of large swaths. You'll see later when I tour you through this garden, but the beds there are not shaped like this. They're not made for individuals. It's primarily families that garden there. And they do kind of farm style row cropping. And it's at a much larger scale. And it's primarily Southeast Asian farmers. So we have a lot of Karen farmers, and we have a couple Vietnamese farmers there and some Hmong farmers there. That maintain these larger crop rows. We also have a pretty large pollinator garden that kind of shields us from the noise of Dale Street. And then up at the front we have raspberries and cherry trees, and then across the street is Dale Street Orchard, which we just finished cleaning up last week with the help from volunteers, where we have free for picking cherries, pears, apples, peaches, and plums. So that is the lily pad and Dale Street Orchard.
Wow.
Oh, wait. There's also, okay, so it was designed with the idea that we would walk people through and show them like kind of household level stuff of like sustainability. So we also capture rain from one of the pergolas into big rain harvesters, and people use that for gardening. And then we also keep our trees there for our tree program. So we order trees in during the winter, and then they arrive in spring, and then we have to plant them into gravel, and then we let them grow and establish root systems throughout the summer at the community gravel bed before they're ready for planting in fall. So those are the main things that I can think of that have special functions at the garden that aren't necessarily here. There's definitely some more water collection happening at the lily pad than here.
Very cool. So this is a personal point of curiosity. The gravel beds for the trees, does that make the root system more accessible when it's time to dig them up?
Yes.
Interesting.
That is exactly what they're for. So it gives basically small community groups a cheap or free way, depending on how scrappy you are, to buy trees in bare root stock, which is where it's bare root. There's no soil. It doesn't come in a pot or anything like that. You buy them in these big packages, and you buy them when they're still dormant. So you buy them when it's cold, and you transplant them into gravel. And The gravel allows the root system to kind of easily move out and still like get water without like actually embedding itself into soil in a way that would shock it if we yanked it out and had to plant it in somebody else's yard.
Nice.
It's a transitionary space for sure that allows us to save a lot of money, because at a nursery level, every day that a tree spends in a nursery is another couple dollars on top of it. And so when you're buying these like trees from Gertens or like other big box stores, you're paying for a lot of time that they've spent giving it resources. And we need to get in on that kind of early to be able to save money to the point where like it makes an impact on our tree canopy.
Yeah, so the nursery helps you build them up and then make sure that that investment, that resource is successful.
Yes.
Which is a really, really cool method.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Gotta check my notes again. What's one thing you wish everybody knew about community gardens?
I guess I wish people knew that it's usually just one person. I am lucky enough that my founder is still willing to come out and do stuff, but I know that there are other community gardens where their kind of flagship leader has started to age out and they haven't found a successor. A lot of the times I think people start these ideas and there's a lot of people that come in and out of community gardens, but there's not a lot of people who understand the need for a commitment beyond the season. There is a necessity for administrative work that happens during the winter. There's a necessity for organizing other gardeners that come by. There's a certain social work aspect to it as well, since these are free open spaces. There's a management of materials and tools that needs to happen as well. So while I think that community gardens do a lot of work to advertise themselves as an easy breezy free-for-all, there is a lot of time investment that people do pro bono for community gardens. And I think that people don't understand that about community garden work, that especially if it's on a city lot or a county-owned lot, they are probably on a year-to-year basis, which is not a good thing for the sustainability of the garden, because that could mean that a developer could come in at any time and decide that they're going to completely upturn the entire garden.
Oof.
So yeah, that's what I wish people knew.
I didn't know that, so I'm glad, because now I know too.
Yes, now you know. I mean, I'm also, as of this year, I think actually last year, Ramsey County has an urban agriculture department. So I'm consulting for them to try and see if we can work out things on the county side, at least, where community gardens can successfully have more than a 1 year long lease at a time. Technically, if you're on a city lot, which the lily pad is on, you're supposed to be able to clean up any temporary structures at the end of every season.
Ooh.
We're lucky enough that we were able to get a 7-year lease on that.
Nice.
But that's coming up.
Ooh.
That's going to end soon.
Spooky.
So if somebody is interested in buying that lot, we would just have to move out, because that would be more profit, more tax money for the city than us, who we pay $1.
$1.
It's super accessible because they don't want vacant lots to go, but at the same time, it's still a very temporary thing, and I don't think there's acknowledgement that we exist as an infrastructure to fill time between purchases of land, which I don't think is how urban agriculture should be treated, as a temporary thing. I think it's something that we need to learn to integrate into our daily lives, and that is not fully recognized in the ordinances or the way that property development happens in the city.
Yeah, we got to build out that solar punk future.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That raises another question for me, is what does your winter prep and winter look like here?
So once October 31st rolls around, I start trying to tell the gardeners that they need to clean out their beds. A lot of people don't do it. So I have to tell them, you have to clean out your bed, otherwise you can't get one next year.
Oh, no.
And they don't like hearing that. But I do feel like I need to try to get people to take responsibility for the plots that they sign up for. So that's the first thing, is cleaning out the beds and doing cover cropping to make sure that we don't have as many weeds next year. And then after that, it comes down to starting to prepare for next year. So we have to look into the budget and see how much money we have for seeds and plants. We have to find out what engagement we got from the gardeners this year and see if there are any people who stood out that we can remain in contact with and rely on for next year. And then we also have to continually grind to see if we can get more funding to fix things up, like this broken chair, or to continue adding things like buying soil amendments, because we still need to continue building up the organic matter that has been lost here historically. After that, I do a lot of outreach indoors during the winter. So we host Neighbor Night, which is every first Thursday. During the winter, we host that at Frogtown Community Center. And during the summer, we've been hosting it here. So it's a free plant-based meal. And it's funded through the Trusted Messenger program with Ramsey County. So that means that we try to connect people in Frogtown or people who are interested to environmental resources that the county offers that they might not know about. So each topic is kind of determined by what neighbors have said that they want information on. So we've done partnerships with the Bell Museum where we give away passes and different STEAM activities. And then we also have done courses about how to live zero waste, or different ways to access like free or low cost items or secondhand items. And then we've also done presentations from the city of St. Paul that have to do with how their recycling program is working, different ways to get rid of trash that you might not know about. And we've also done emergency network building, so offering people different ways to build out their emergency kits and what to expect as climate change progresses, who to check on, and how to build your network so that we can be a bit more resilient with that. So that's what I do during the winter, primarily is preparing for the next year, and then continuing to remind people that we're here for environmental resources through Neighbor Night, which is, once again, every first Thursday, either at Frogtown Community Center or at our village garden.
Nice. Sounds like you stay very busy.
I try to.
Ain't that the goal?
I don't know if it is.
Yeah, a moment of rest is nice too. So what advice do you have for young gardeners as well as builders in our competition?
Oh, well, okay, so my advice is I want you to be thoughtful about how you're getting water to your crops. There are things that you can do in Minecraft that you can't do in real life. Like, you can't build like a layer of water underneath soil and then have plants on top of it. I can't do that in real life. So don't do that, because that's not how aquifers work. But for beginner gardeners, I would say don't lose hope. If a plant dies, it's okay. I know that people get really scared about plants dying. It's normal for plants to die. And if you don't get as big of a fruit as you wanted, don't be afraid of that either. I would just say, like, you need to be open to making mistakes, because a lot of mistakes will be made. You're learning about an entirely new system of life that you probably have like no experience in, and you're learning about entirely new industries that you probably know nothing about, like the seed industry, like the nursery industry, how plants are propagated and sold, and how perishable products are maintained. All of that is brand new. So don't be intimidated if you try to grow something and it doesn't come up the way you thought it would. I think that's primarily it. Don't give up and don't be afraid to get dirty. Those are the two things. Because I think I see people doing those two things too much. And it's one of my biggest pet peeves, is when people are like, I don't like getting dirty outside. So don't do that. And also don't be like, this is too hard, I can't do it anymore. You gotta do it. You gotta do it for the earth.
And there's always an easier way to find too. Like,
Yeah.
there are ways to make it so that, like, if you're too tired to weed, try a container garden.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a ton of options out there. All right. So then, if people want to get involved with Frogtown Green, what should they do?
You should email me. My email is xiem@frogtowngreen.com. That's it. You should just email me. You can also follow us on Instagram. We're a little bit better at using Instagram now, but honestly, email is probably the best way. If I'm being completely honest, texting me is probably the most best way, but I'm not going to put my phone number out on the internet.
That's good safety. That's good internet safety. Don't do that.
So once again, my email is xiem@frogtowngreen.com.
Excellent. And we'll also put that in the description of the video, along with a link to Frogtown Green's website. So if you're curious, you can always go there too. All right. Can you give us a tour of the garden?
Yes, I can.
Woohoo!
Where do you want to go first?
Ooh, tough choice. Let's start with the beds and then do the orchard.
Okay.
Okay. All right. When you're ready.
Okay, let's go. So these are all of our garden plots. The point of the fence beyond here is all individually assigned. So each of these is a resident of Frogtown or somebody who is interested in gardening here. From this point onward are community beds, which means they are maintained by Frogtown Green staff and volunteers. So we have master gardener volunteers that help us maintain these, and then it's me and Chris and our helper Henry. And what we do is we have to weed it every week. But this is all with the goal of having food that's readily available for people to pick if they don't have time to maintain their own bed. So what I have here are these front rows here are flower beds. These are maintained by Patricia and one of our gardeners. And then over here is my peppers bed. Alongside is snow peas, which are an early fruiting kind of sweet pea. I have red lunchbox peppers for slicing, Thai chili peppers, and jalapenos, which are super popular. Then over here is kind of our cucumber bed. So we've got squash, loofah, cucumbers, and then a volunteer lettuce. And then this arch right here, the cucumbers are going to climb up it and shade this area out, and collards do okay in like part shade. So that's why there's a row of collards there. This is our tomato bed. Tomatoes are crazy popular. I need to fertilize this, but thankfully they are all different like kinds for the most part. So I think I have like 4 different varieties of tomatoes in here, including over here are our ground cherries. So we have the first fruits of the ground cherry coming up here. Yeah, here you go. So ground cherries are kind of similar to tomatillos in that they have this husk on the outside. You wait until it gets papery and falls off. And then on the inside is this golden little fruit that's very delicious. They grow low and wide, so they take up quite a bit of space, but I think they're worth it. This bed is potatoes and tomatillo and okra. Okra takes the longest to come up if you don't start it in the, like indoors, but these are okra. And then we'll probably have them ready in August or early September. These are tomatillos. These are actually volunteers from last year because somebody planted tomatillos and I was like, I want tomatillos, so why not? These are all potatoes. So we took organic potatoes. You have to take organic potatoes because GMO potatoes, or like potatoes that are not grown organically, have a reproduction suppressant sprayed on them. So if you have organic potatoes and they're starting to like grow eyes, you can cut each eye out and that's a whole new potato plant. So I was able to get 16 potato plants for free. Over here, we've got a bunch of brassicas because I really like brassicas. I super like eating greens, whether salad or stir fry or in soup. So we have, this is kohlrabi, which is a root vegetable. The top leaves are also edible, just like any other kind of green. We have lots of leftover volunteer lettuces. Lettuce is super easy to grow if you've never grown anything before. Lettuce is super easy. There's like no bugs that eat it. So, hot tip. Over here we have my Napa baby cabbages growing, and then we've got broccoli, collards, kale. Over here we have planted, we just planted these last week. I think they just need to get watered, but it's going to be more leafy Asian greens, celtis, things like that. Over here is like our aromatics. So we have, these are bulb yellow onions that we'll be able to harvest in fall. These are spring green onions that you can harvest now. We have some volunteer cilantro growing in here. And then this is garlic. We just harvested the scapes. We actually planted these all the way at the beginning of spring. So like we planted them actually in fall of last year. So October last year. So we're gonna wait a whole year for some good garlic. We've got corn. This is kind of like our tall bed here. Half corn and half amaranth. Amaranth is kind of like quinoa. It grows here really well, and it's a great way to get some grains that you can store away for winter if you like oatmeal, that sort of thing. Over here, more leafy Asian greens and turnips and carrots. The carrots, I had to learn to thin out. It's really hard for me to thin out things. I'm starting to get better at it. I think after like my 3rd year of gardening, I'll grow a thicker skin. But we had to double dig this bed because we tried to grow carrots in it last year and the carrots only grew this deep. So clearly something was up with the soil. So we dug it super deep. We turned it all over, added compost, and they're doing super well this year. So that's super exciting. So that is the tour of all of the beds that I manage. I can't for sure say what everybody else is doing, but one of our super good gardeners lays out her own twine here. What you see here is an example of square foot gardening. So she's measured out the space so that she knows how many plants that she should have per. What she has here is about 2 brassicas per 2-foot space, which gives them plenty of space to get super big. She also started these in her house, so they were already little plants when she started. Same thing over here. We've got grid planting going on here. This is a super common way for people to learn how to space out stuff so that they can pack more in. It's a great way to do gardening if you don't have a lot of space and you're an urban farmer like myself. Same thing over here. You can't see it because she took the string up, but Meg started out by measuring out foot by foot, and you can kind of see the idea of it here, where you only have, for instance, here spinach is just 2. Over here, there's 3 to 4 cilantro plants in one planting. Tomato gets its own square foot, things like that. This is more community beds. We have pole beans and squash growing here. And then back there is our rain garden. It's really big. We do not maintain that. It is way too much for us to do. So somebody else does that. Over here is the mini forest. Oh my God, a baby bunny. Look at you. So this is a Miyawaki mini forest. A Miyawaki mini forest is a method designed by a naturalist from Japan. He designed this method during the 80s to kind of speed up the process of succession, which is something that happens within forests naturally. So what would normally happen is you have a prairie or whatever, and then trees start to kind of move in. Shrubs will start to shade out the flowers and grasses, and then after that, taller trees move up, and these shrubs don't have as long of lifespan, so they die back, and then the trees are able to shoot up, and that's how you end up with the forest, and that usually takes like hundreds of years. The way that we've done it here is we have taken a bunch of species that are known to grow here pre-colonization. So we have dogwoods, walnuts, elderberry shrubs, and you can see if you look over here, it's already over 8 feet tall in the tallest areas of it. This is only 1 year of growth. So when you are able to plant all of these species together in a collaborative way, they encourage each other to grow upwards and tall, providing a lot of canopy cover and a lot of habitat for wildlife in the area. Miyawaki designed this method to kind of make up for the rapid urbanization of Japan, and it's come into a perfect use here where urbanization has started to really decimate wildlife spaces in the city. So that's what the mini forest is, and we planted this last year, and it's really fun to watch it grow. Come and see it in person. Over here we have raspberries and our asparagus plants, strawberry patch. We have this thing here to protect us kind of from the parking lot heat, but it's a combination of just whatever cast-offs we get, some native plants, and then this is a gooseberry shrub. So a gooseberry is a native berry shrub, and it's got these little berries here. And when they're a little bit red at the top, that's when you know it's ripe. If you eat it before it's ripe, it's gonna be really sour. Super good, super fresh. Lots of just mishmash of whatever here. Milkweed, 9-bark, veronica, currants, dogwood. These are currants. Another fruit that grows well here. Super yummy. And then over here, this is our wood chip pile. We need wood chips and we need compost, so we have it here. This is a cherry tree. We're gonna start walking into kind of like the orchard area here. So this is another cherry tree. This is a peach tree. We can grow peaches here now because of global warming. So there's one upside to that. These are plums. We have a bunch of plums here. When you're growing fruit like this, culling is also super important. So like if I allowed all of these plums to try and grow to full size, they just would never get big. So this week, one of our projects is probably going to be culling off all of these green plums to find the good ones, and then let those grow. Cherries again, cherries again. And we have a robin that's yelling at us because we're too close to his nest. These are sweet cherries. They come later in the season after they get some more heat. This year, all of these little chicken wire fences you see are new shrubs that we've planted. They're all edible and great for the birds. So we have elderberry, the edible kind, currants, and hazelnuts growing. Over here is our apple trees. Apples are really hard to grow. You can kind of like get a lot of them, but if you see these little dimples here, each of these indicates a bug has gotten into it, and it's really hard to keep bugs off of apples. So if you're a beginner and you really want that grocery level of apple, I would say don't try to grow it yourself. More sour cherries. Oh my God, we have so many sour cherries. Please come get some. This is an edible crab apple called the Dole Globe crab apple. It'll grow to the about this size. Not my favorite, to be honest. We've got a walnut tree here. God willing, we'll get some walnuts off of this thing. This is a black walnut tree, so it's native to Minnesota. And it puts out a kind of toxin at the base here, which prevents other woody stuff from growing. So you'll notice nothing really competes with it here. And I really like walnut trees. Another sour cherry. I pruned this one myself. I quite like the shape. I think it's super accessible for people to pick fruit from this one, particularly because of the way I've pruned it. So quite proud of that. That's been a 2-year process. And then over here, you'll see our bird bath. And then you used to be able to see it a lot more clearly, but we do have like bird habitat here. So we have bird houses and 2 bird feeders, both on the conifer and the willow tree over there. And it's done a great job at attracting birds, and the bird bath is used quite frequently, especially on hot days. Something you might not know, we put a rock here because birds like to perch between getting their water and drinking it. This also provides a space for insects to kind of crawl up on here and lap a little bit of water up. So if you have a bird bath, put a rock in there. This is our pergola, which we were just sitting in. I really like the pergola. I think it's really nice. People sit here a lot. And this is an up-close look at our suet feeder, which is empty because the birds have been eating it. We have an entire family of blue jays over there that just goes crazy for the suet. So I have to refill that, and I will right now. This is Meg. Have you met Meg?
Hi, Meg.
Meg is one of our awesome gardeners. She's very responsible and she keeps her bed super clean, even cleaner than mine. So if you've never changed suet before, do you know what suet is?
I do, but explain it.
Suet is lard with seed in it, and it's supposed to kind of simulate when like a deer eats something and then like poops out the seed. But obviously this is not feces, so. Now, bird feeders are kind of controversial actually, because even though it attracts birds and people like looking at birds, some people think, well, you're just kind of hand feeding them. Shouldn't you be restoring their habitat instead of feeding them things that they wouldn't naturally get? I don't exactly know how I feel about it personally. I've only gotten into the world of birding as of this year, but I don't really like doing this because it makes my hands all gross. So I support rebuilding bird habitat. Go rebuild habitat if you have the money and time to do it. But if you don't, I guess a bird feeder is fine too.
Can you explain what the cage does while you fill it?
Yeah, so the cage keeps squirrels from getting to it. Although I feel like it probably doesn't stop them that much. It's mainly to keep other animals from getting to it so that the birds can get it. And it holds the suet in like so. There you go. There you go. When it's not so hot, it's really not that gross, but when it's hot, you kind of just have to deal with it. Unless you have a fridge. I don't have a fridge out here. Put these back on here. Oh, buddy. There you go. There you go, buddy. Okay. We have to keep guards on these because, like you saw earlier, we have baby bunnies. So when shrubs are still young like this, they're quite appealing to rabbits because of how soft their bark is. So there's that. These are our bird houses. Another walnut tree. Although this is where the other one is, and as you can see, this is also empty. So I need to refill that too, but I'll do that off camera. And that's the whole garden. I don't know. Anything else?
I think that's everything. All right. Thank you so much for welcoming us to our village garden and for interviewing with us today.
Thank you for having me. I hope to see you all out and about. Come outside!
Woohoo! And also, please come to the July 12th Great Gardens Buildathon. Whoever wins will get a free poster of their build, a $20 Visa gift card prize, and eternal bragging rights for building the coolest garden. We'll see you there. Register at the link below. Bye!